I never really played any of the Legend of Zelda games growing up, and not even most of the Nintendo games. Donkey Kong, Mario, Super Smash Bros., not any of them. I had a Game Boy and GameCube growing up, so I had some Nintendo, but for the most part, I stuck to the Pokemon games and the Sonic games. I really loved playing Sonic, like Sonic Rider, Sonic the Hedgehog, Sonic Adventures, all those games. So what made me want to play Zelda all of a sudden? Well, in short, Dark Souls, one of my favorite games of all time, and Nintendo, one of the biggest gaming companies on the planet. So let me explain Dark Souls first. It's one of my favorite games of all time, and I first played it in 2014 after watching PewDiePie play it on YouTube. I was hooked pretty much instantly. So much so that I wanted to learn more about the game's development and what inspired it. One crucial detail I remember is Hidetaka Miyazaki, the game's director, mentioning The Legend of Zelda as an inspiration for the game. This was some time ago, but that detail never really left my mind. Nintendo, on the other hand, has a reputation only matched by the likes of Disney, Star Wars, or Marvel. It's an absolute powerhouse of entertainment. After the GameCube, I was more on the PlayStation side of things. Combine that with Nintendo's model of game releases where you can only play their games on their hardware, I never really looked towards them again. I mean, what if I didn't enjoy something that they put out and wasted my money? But Zelda always stayed in the back of my mind as something I wanted to try. I mean, why did Miyazaki mention it as an inspiration for Dark Souls, one of the best RPGs of the last decade? I wanted to know what it was all about, so I decided to give The Legend of Zelda a chance. For the game I decided to start with. Why Ocarina of Time, you may ask? Well, it was the first 3D Zelda game. One of my main inspirations for trying The Legend of Zelda was Dark Souls, a 3D RPG. I thought it maximized my chances to really enjoy the games and would give a lot of context for what Zelda has become in the modern day with the Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. The story opens with the main character Link having a nightmare. He dreams of being in front of a drawbridge with a man clad in black armor with green skin attacking him. As quickly as the dream begins, it ends with a fairy named Navi waking up Link. The fairy is sent by the nearby master of the forest called the Deku Tree. Navi's job seems to be to guide Link. Link is awakened and told to see the Deku Tree. He is told by this tree that he needs to cure it from a curse placed on it by an evil man from the Sand Empire. This man is Ganondorf. He is responsible for the fate of the Deku Tree and its death. He is prophesied to bring great evil to Hyrule. Once Link vanquishes the curse, he is told to head to Hyrule Castle and see Princess Zelda. Link does just that. He meets Zelda and learns of the fate of the world, and how he needs to collect the Spirit Stones and make sure the Spirit Realm is safe. Ocarina of Time begins here. From here on out, I will recap the story as well as the associated dungeons that take place in, alongside my thoughts on it all. Full disclosure, the first two dungeons you see on screen was on a second save file. I did not record my initial clearing, so if you see me clear rooms very fast or not struggle, it's because I know what I'm doing. Beyond these two dungeons, the gameplay is fresh. The first dungeon, I immediately saw what others see in the Zelda series. After spending time in Kokiri, just learning how to control the game and what each button meant, I was pretty overwhelmed. The Deku Tree dungeon really explains how these mechanics come together. The lock-in camera is really useful to keep your camera centered on the enemy. With no camera control, it was difficult to adjust in the beginning. I particularly enjoyed the slingshot. There's nothing like killing a bunch of spiders with seeds. But what I enjoyed more was the puzzles. They are incredibly simplistic, yes, but I liked what they were doing. They were showing off jumping and climbing and lighting torches on fire, burning webs. It was great. I sort of felt like a kid in 1998, but in reverse. What I mean is that 10-year-old Timmy is excited for what the N64 can do. I was excited in the very same way. What could the N64 do? What could it not do? Timmy's in 1998, but I'm in 2025, and we're wondering the same thing. What was super fun was the jump attack you do in the Deku Tree to unlock the bottom floor. Once I did it, my mind immediately thought of the Asylum Demon in Dark Souls. I was beginning to see what Miyazaki meant, I thought to myself. The first boss was this eyeball atrocity. It stalks you when you enter the room until you actually look up to see it. It has a glowing eye with a division symbol and it squirts out eggs. These eggs hatch into smaller versions of itself, but you can prevent that by killing them before they do. Once that's done, the monster itself comes to face you. You can stun it with the Deku Nut and then beat on it. Do this about 8 times and you will have won the fight. It's not a hard boss, but it does teach you very clearly how the bosses in this game will be designed. Navi will always be there to help you with some information, but never too much. The boss will have puzzle-like mechanics, which is on you to figure out. There might be ads, there might not be. You gotta read the room. It's a great introductory boss. Death Mountain was a pretty interesting region. It had me scratching my head for a long time. I couldn't figure out where I was supposed to go beyond Goron City. Goron City itself was pretty empty for the most part, and I didn't know how to pick up those exploding plants. Eventually, it clicked, and I started using the song that Zelda gave me and started playing some music. Well, it worked, and I met the village elder, Darunia. Darunia didn't seem too happy to see me, until I played him Saria's song, which I had to get from the Lost Woods. Once he was done with his little dance, he asked me to clear out the Dongo caves nearby. Apparently, there's some fruit in there, the bombs from earlier, that the Gorons love eating, despite the fact that they blow up. These must be some tough guys. This was the first moment I realized that the songs I would be receiving from Zelda and any other people would be used for puzzle solving. I was very interested in how they would use this mechanic throughout the game, and I always kept an eye on my Ocarina in case I needed it. The caves was an interesting dungeon. It's much smaller than the previous one, but much more deadly. There are these metallic eye creatures which creep me out. They had this eye and nose and then a mouth. Ugh, I never liked looking at them. There were also these lizard crawlers that would explode after killing them. But nobody, and I mean nobody, was tougher than the duo lizard sons of bitches. They move so fast, platform around, and can beat you up very, very fast. I resorted to Deku Nuts to stun them and beat on them. They were by far the most challenging early game obstacles. The bosses are really more puzzle-like than pure combat encounters, but these guys give me the sweats every time. Luckily, they don't respawn, but there were 2 of them. On screen right now, I'm killing them very, very easily. But don't let this footage fool you. This was on a rerun. The first time I went through here, they gave me hell. The Dongo was the first dungeon where I also experienced the first traps. Moving blades, exploding enemies, traps in the form of statues that move when you touch them. It all reminded me of Sen's Fortress. There were also these bat enemies that were on fire. If you blocked them with your Deku Shield, they would burn it up and you would lose it forever until you got a new one. How they can fly around while on fire is beyond me to explain, but I really did not like them. The main mechanic here was bombs. Before Darunia sends you here, he gives you a bracelet that lets you pick up the plants from the floor, which are the bombs. You also get a pouch, which lets you carry them in your inventory. The boss of the dungeon was a giant lizard, who, you guessed it, we had to throw bombs in the mouth of to do damage to. It's more puzzle-like, it's not pretty difficult, but it's pretty fun. After the dungeon, I was rewarded with a fairy granting me a sword slash, another fairy granting me a fiery AoE move, Darunia proclaiming me his brother, and what I came for, the Spirit Stone. I liked the dungeon overall. It introduced a new item, it had some new enemies, and it upped the ante in terms of difficulty. But I still left it wanting some more. What else did the game have in store for me? The next Spirit Stone we needed was Azora Sapphire. And where was this? Well, Zora's Domain, of course. Zora's Domain was a very interesting section. I'm a sucker for this type of alliance structure, a clear elemental category denoting the type of alliance, fire for the Death Mountain group, water for the Zoras obviously, and even sand for what seems like Ganondorf. When I entered, I thought the Zora NPCs were enemies, and I was a bit intimidated. I even tried shooting a Deku Nut at them to snipe them. When I did no damage, I thought, okay, time to get close. And to my surprise, they were just wanting to talk. I like the minigame here that lets you unlock longer diving. This place also allows you quick access to the Hyrule River once you get longer diving. The Hyrule River has a massive water area with a temple-esque structure very deep in. There was no way to reach this as of right now, so I thought I'd come back there. The main gripe for the Zoras was that Princess Ruto was missing. A quick dive in the Hylia River gets you a bottle with a note inside from Ruto apparently. It says she is in Lord Jabu Jabu's stomach. Lord Jabu Jabu is a deity for the Zora. In the note, she says to rescue her and not tell her father. So naturally, the first thing I did was tell her father, King Zora. But not on purpose, it was on accident. I thought speaking to her father would let me know where to go, but turns out Link just tells him about Ruto and King Zora says, hey, go behind me in this tunnel. And that tunnel leads to Lord Jabu Jabu. It felt like that was the intended progression, so I went along with it and decided to deal with the consequences as they came. At this point of the game, I was pretty hooked. I started understanding how the puzzles were structured, how the dungeons worked, and what Link's character limits were. He's pretty fast and agile, but multiple enemies really trouble you. He has multiple ways to stop those enemies, but even those are limited, and it seems like the game wants you to use these options as they throw plenty of them at you. I get to Lord Jabu Jabu, and after a while, and perhaps a Google search, I learned that I needed to catch a fish and go into his mouth. His stomach was the dungeon, a pretty slimy and gross one. I don't say that as a bad thing, I actually really enjoyed this dungeon. The setting was pretty putrid, but in a good way. The layout itself reflected it. I mean, from falling down into holes to access the lower level, to disgusting ways the ground and walls moved, I loved the vibe it created. I quickly found Ruto and a boomerang to figure out the level. I really enjoyed the boomerang. It was an infinite ranged weapon I didn't have to manage any ammo for. And it seemed like the boomerang was the only way to kill the enemies in this level without them killing you. This dungeon had two bosses and I enjoyed both. The first snout monster enemy was just a Tom and Jerry chase. I liked the spinning piece in the middle limiting my movement and the use of the boomerang here. The other boss was really cool. It felt like an eldritch monstrosity. Again, I had to use the boomerang here to kill it. It wasn't pretty hard, but it was a pretty good spectacle. Great bosses. A nice shake-up to this dungeon was Princess Ruto herself. She seems to be, and I mean this with a lot of love, a spoiled brat. When you meet her, she says you have to carry her out, but not before you find what you came here looking for. You carry her, you put her down, if you leave the room without her, she throws a fit. She's very annoying, but she's also crucial to finishing the level. Needless to say, I really like the combination of story and puzzle solving here with Princess Ruto. Eventually, you return to King Zora, and there's a sinking feeling that you shouldn't have told him where Ruto was. He doesn't even remember writing the letter. After finishing this dungeon, you have the 3 pieces to the Spirit Stones, and you head back to Zelda. It's here where the first pivotal story moment happens. You approach Hyrule Castle, and see Zelda and the Sheikah who protects her ride out of the city. Zelda throws a purple object to you and rides away. Ganondorf comes out of the city, all menacing. He asks you where they went, and after you refuse, he zaps you and rides away. It's eerily similar to the dream Link was having at the beginning of the game. You pick up the item that Zelda threw, and it's an ocarina. Play it, and Zelda speaks to you and tells you to go to the Temple of Time. At the Temple of Time, you unlock the Master Sword. Ganondorf shows up behind you, grinning, and says that you set his plans into motion. I didn't know what this meant at this point. The screen goes white and then black, and you wake up in front of a sage. The sage explains that it's been 7 years since you came to claim the Master Sword. You were too weak back then, and were put into a coma, but now are strong enough to wield it. He explains that the world is overrun with evil, and Ganondorf is behind it. He instructs you to find the other sages to seal this evil. Only you can do it as you're the chosen one, so you quickly get to work. This part of the story was so incredibly interesting. The time skip for Link, the condition of Hyrule Castle afterwards, the zombies roaming the streets, the clouds above Death Mountain, and this exciting feeling that the game has now really began. Link is also older and can now wield his Hylian shield, but he can't wield his old slingshot, sticks, and boomerang anymore. But something told me we'd be getting new toys, so I didn't mourn them too much. Link also meets Sheik in the Temple of Time after waking up. He's dressed in robes concealing his face, he has blonde hair and reddish eyes. I've got to say, I really love his design. Link gets up and gets a move on to Karakuro Village to get a grappling hook from the graveyard. Then it's off to the Forest Temple. The whole sequence from Zora's to Ganondorf taking over was a ride, but it was so worth it. The first couple of dungeons really seem like they're setting up expectations for the player. How you can solve problems, and sometimes the best move is to come back and go explore somewhere else. I also understood better why Nintendo has such a reverence for its games. I was really enjoying the world they built here, the characters they created, and the way they had you interact with it. It all felt very magical and fun. To get to the Forest Temple, you go through the Lost Woods. This isn't the first time you go through here. To get Saria's song, you come down this path earlier in the game. It's a maze-like level where you're meant to memorize what path to take. What I find really cool about the Lost Woods is that it basically acts as a fast travel area, at least for the early game. There are paths here that lead to Death Mountain and Zora's Domain. You see, every time the game loads from scratch, if you are not in a dungeon at shutdown, you wake up in the Kokiri Forest, or the Temple of Time post-time skip. You can then get up and either walk the whole route to get to where you were, or you can go through the Lost Woods and take one of the shortcuts. Later on in the game, you get songs to transport you around the map. But early on, the Lost Woods serve as a great fast travel area. The main areas you want to visit are the Death Mountain area and Zora's Domain, and they have convenient locations right here in the Lost Woods. The Forest Temple is also in the Lost Woods. To get there, you do some quick maze puzzles with some unkillable enemies, and end up at the entrance to the temple. Sheik gives you a song to return there anytime, so you never have to see these god-forsaken Minotaurs again. You grapple up with the hookshot and enter the temple. The Forest Temple is a really cool dungeon. It's old and decrepit, yet magical. It's very grand and open too. All the dungeons were, but they never felt like they have any function beyond being a video game level. This temple absolutely feels like a temple. It has a grand corridor, backyard with running water, and plenty of greenery. Hallways with carpets in them. It has symmetrical rooms with symmetrical layouts akin to something an architect may design. I mean, it definitely has its video game feel to it as well, but it's not all video game. It has a haunting but calm element to it, as if spirits live here, but not the malevolent kind. Although at the current moment, it is inhabited by the malevolent kind, and it's your job to banish them. The Forest Temple introduces new enemy types, inflaming skulls, skeleton warriors who are tough as bones, pun intended, and these Elden Ring-esque hand enemies that throw you to the beginning of the level if they get you. The temple also introduces keys to access doors. This will impede progress in the level if you don't do your due diligence with exploration. The silver keys really force you to develop a mental map to the dungeon, as much as the physical map. While exploring, you get a new goodie and a bow, you get the keys, beat the ghosts, and get to the basement from the elevator. Now, when I arrived down here, I noticed my path was blocked by bars. I spent a lot of time trying to figure out what the hell to do. Turns out that you have to literally spin the room with the big blocks on the sides. How you find this out, I do not know. I mean, of course, you can walk around the room and maybe you see the prompt up there that says grab when you come near these blocks. But what I mean is like intuitively. When I arrived down here, I never thought that Link was strong enough to move a whole room, so I never even thought to move it. It made me miss the yellow paint that everybody keeps talking about in video games. But at the same time, I respect the decision to let the player figure it out. I just wish it was communicated better. The boss here is a really cool one. Phantom Ganondorf. He goes through the paintings surrounding the rooms and you have to shoot him to get him to stop. Eventually he does stop and decides to play magic tennis with you. This fight really annoyed me at first. I enjoyed the concept, but my god, I could not figure out how to reflect the shot. The angle of the shot matters, and you can whiff it and just take a hit to the face. The first round, I figured out the mechanics, but died. The second round, I just couldn't figure out how to reflect it back, and learned of the tennis-like nature of the fight. When I sent the shot back to him and he reflected it, I felt like a deer in headlights. Wait, what? I thought to myself. The third time, I felt good about my chances and then got zapped in the first phase and lost 95% of my health along with my mind. Suffice to say, I was not happy and thought it was over. But of course, this was the run I beat him. Great concept, and I struggled a bit here. It's not a hard fight, but it is annoying with the camera angle. The way you need to hit the ball and the timing of the parries, but looking back at it, I actually really liked it. The fact that I remember it so well is evidence of the fact. You beat Ganon and free the forest stage with Saria. She shares her power with you, and you move on to the next temple. The forest temple is a great level. I love the eerie atmosphere, the haunting vibe to it. I just really enjoyed it. The Fire Temple was next. This was in the same area that Garunia was from earlier. I didn't talk about him before because honestly, I didn't think he was that important. He seemed like just someone to tell you to get something for him before getting the stone. But turns out, he's a sage. I knew that the path to the temple starts with me going to Death Mountain. I headed straight for the crater at the top, and found out that I can't stay in here longer than a minute. I turned around and went to Goron City, but not before meeting the big Goron at the very top. This time the city was empty. I mean, it was really empty. I really appreciated how desolate they made it. I mean, even before it was like this, but there was no spinning pot, all the shops were closed, and the big round guy in the middle was replaced by a smaller version. I figured out that we had to stop him somehow, and hit him with a bomb. Well, he does stop and says that he's Darunia's son, and his name is also my name. He also mentioned that his dad went up to the Fire Temple, because a lot of Gorons were imprisoned there, and that the dragon Volvagia is back and terrorizing the city. This was all, of course, Ganondorf's fault. He asks me to save the day and gives me a red tunic, which is absolutely fire. Pun intended. With this, I headed off to the crater again. Big mistake. You see, if you go straight to the crater from here, you can survive but not really progress. I'm not sure if Darunia's son tells you about the secret passage in the back. The game itself shows the room with the passage opening, along with the shop, but I didn't really read it as go here. I went straight back to the crater and got stuck for 30 minutes. When I realized I was supposed to go back to the room where Darunia initially is earlier on in the game, I kind of had a head-scratching moment. I mean, the game hints at it, but does it really send you there? Perhaps I missed the crucial dialogue? I mean, I feel like I read everything, but whatever. You head into the crater to the entrance and meet Sheik, who at this point gives you the song to return to the Fire Temple at any moment. You move into the Fire Temple. Okay, I have a lot of thoughts on the temple. It's tall and wide. It is full of lava and annoying enemies that are on fire and have erratic movement. It has collapsing pillars and a room where fire chases you out. It's very cool. It is also the one dungeon so far that has the most clear progression. Get to the top and drop down says the first Goron you release. As you release more, they tell you more and more things. Funnily enough, they have chests with them that contain the keys to every door in the temple. Ganondorf must have known we were coming and what we were planning to do. It's almost as if he wants us to succeed at freeing the sages. Either that, or the Goron's brains have been fried from all the fruits they've been eating. I only joke. I know the keys that are next to the Gorons don't open the doors of the prisons they're locked in, but you'd have to at least check, right, Mr. Goron? Anyways, moving on with the Fire Temple. The temple has 5 levels, and each is more puzzle than combat this time. They introduce new enemy types, like the flying lava snakes, the vacuumer, as I like to call it, the lava slugs, and the dancer enemies guarding the big treasures. There's also a new time mechanic where you have to shoot or bomb a diamond-shaped obelisk that frees up some climbable wall from fire. Cool stuff here, but nothing groundbreaking. The highlight of this level is the hammer. Big bonks. I love a weapon I can bonk an enemy with. It's so satisfying to just crush them under the weight, but bonks are mostly reserved for puzzle solving. And once you get the hammer, that's pretty much all you do, until you get the boss key. Bonk the floor down to create a platform, bonk the tiki statues out of the way so you can enter a room, and finally, bonk the boss. The Volvagia boss fight was pretty fun and goes up as one of my favorite boss fights so far. When I entered the arena, I immediately knew what to do. It's whack-a-mole time. Volvagia goes into one of the holes, comes up, and bonk! Flies up for a while, breathing fire at you, then goes back into the holes, comes up, and you guessed it, bonk! That's the whole fight. Fun fight! I love bonking. At this point, I think I like the Forest Temple more than Fire, although the Fire Temple really brought it. The main reason is because I like the haunted house atmosphere and the layout of the level. It's my personal favorite, so Forest still takes it over Fire. The Fire Temple is still pretty cool. There were some areas I could not get to for the life of me, so I assumed we'd come back at a later date with new skills. Next, we're headed to the Water Temple. The Water Temple. What do I say about this dungeon? I hate it. The Water Temple is the dungeon for the ages. It's related to the Zoras, and you've probably seen it before if you explored Lake Hylia. It's in the depths and quite visible. Before you even go to the Water Temple, you need boots. And I'm not talking about any boots, specifically iron boots. It's in a mini dungeon called the Ice Caverns, which has some basic combat and puzzle solving, nothing to write home about. You get the iron boots for your troubles, and that allows you to sink into the water and walk when you get to the ground. In the Ice Cavern, you have to melt some red ice with special fire. Funnily enough, King Zora is also encased in this ice. Crucial detail for later. So I got the boots and made it to the water temple. It's more of a vertical dungeon that you slowly expose and flush the water from. That's done by playing Zelda's Lullaby. This is all well and good. I've played Zelda's Lullaby multiple times before. I see what the devs are trying to do here. My only problem, or at least one of my only problems, is the way you equip the godforsaken boots. Menuing. I spent so much of my time here menuing. Put the boots off, take them off, put the ocarina on, take it off, if you need something else, repeat. If you're anything like me, and like specific tools at specific spots, you will be doing a lot of menuing. I don't like keeping the ocarina on the C-stick because it's situational. I'd rather the hook, bombs, or arrows. You know, at least with the ocarina, you don't have to menu a lot and just equip this for one dungeon. But the iron boots, forget about it. You will be menuing like no tomorrow. It really takes the fun out of the experience. That not to say there is much fun. I didn't find the water temple puzzles very fun. The enemies were annoying. I mean, you have to enter and exit the middle section of the dungeon multiple times. And there are these spider enemies that respawn every time. I didn't trigger a door cutscene like other places. All I do is walk around, and when I come back, they're back hopping to kill me. It's really tiresome. They also take no fall damage. And it's because they're not really difficult, they're just so annoying. Come to think of it, while writing this up, I can't think of anything during the water temple that I really enjoyed. All I remember is my frustration and anger at the design. I can't believe they designed the water temple and said, yup, put it in the game. No, that's a lie. The one redeeming quality about the water temple is the Dark Link fight. I think the Dark Link fight is one of the best boss fights that's not technically a boss fight in the game. The way he mirrors everything about you, from your health, to your attacks, to the way you look, it's all really well done. It's a pretty challenging fight too, and I used a bit of online help to beat him, I'll be honest. But beyond that, fuck the water temple. Okay, at least in one respect, my frustration was my fault. And from the footage on the screen, you can probably tell what it is. Before you come to the temple, you can melt the red ice from King Zora using the flames in the ice cavern. This will give you the blue tunic. This tunic, rather crucially, allows you to breathe underwater indefinitely. This relieves some of the menuing because at least you don't have to unequip and re-equip the iron boots because you're running out of time underwater. I did about 30 to 40% of the dungeon without the tunic. I didn't like my time there without it. When I got the tunic, it was much more bearable, but at that point I just wanted to get out. Towards the end, I was at least excited to fight the boss. So there I am with my long shot ready to open the boss door. 2 fairies and bottles for max reses that I could afford. I open the boss door, think I'm almost there, and voila. 3 spinning blades up a slope. I almost lost my mind. Now, please tell me why these needed to be here. Are they difficult to cross? No. Are they super deadly? Also no. Are they a pain in my ass after this pain in the ass dungeon? Yup. Why? Simply why? I completed all the puzzles, got all the loot. Give me my boss straight up. No more challenges. The final challenge is me fighting the boss. It's not even a good challenge. It's just walk up this slope. It's more annoying. It's like the devs are spitting in my face and laughing at me. Let me fight the boss. What is this? Why is this here? What purpose do these things serve? The boss isn't any much cooler or better than the dungeon. It's basically a brain underwater that's trying to kill you, surprise surprise. The way you kill it back is to long shot the brain out and give it a spanking. It's not difficult. I mean, fair enough, it looks pretty cool. It's mostly just positioning. Sometimes the long shot wouldn't properly hook the brain, so I had to manually aim instead of L aiming, which is annoying. But beyond that, I found it pretty disappointing. A disappointing boss to a disappointing dungeon. I never wanted to get out quicker. I did not like this place, if you can't tell already. Oh yeah, Ruto's the water sage, by the way. She gives you a medallion and you move on. God, get me out of here. After the water temple, I was confused as to where to go. Navi kept telling me to go to someone who knew more about the sages. Well, who better to ask than a sage themselves? I went back to the Temple of Time. As soon as I got in, Sheik tells me I can go back in time to when Link was a kid. Cool moment. Ocarina of Time, I get it. Link. He's a link between timelines. But anyways, I traveled back in time and went to Kakariko village and got to the bottom of the well. This was a pretty cool dungeon. I really liked the vibe. It's a haunted well with chains hanging and this bloody hue on the ground and walls. I mean, The Legend of Zelda is marketed towards a younger demographic, or at least that's what I heard, especially back in the day. I can imagine how creeped out a 10-year-old would be looking at this. I, the adult I pretend to be, was also creeped out. It has an eerie feeling, and the setting is just off. The well's main mechanic is blindness. Not in the sense that you can't see anything, but there are multiple trap invisible holes that you can just fall through. It's a cool concept because it forced me to map the dungeon out better than I previously did for any other. It's not that long of a dungeon and it doesn't overstay its welcome. The highlight was the boss that gives you the Eye of Truth. I mean, I entered the room and there are these white and red hands growing out of the ground. Already pretty creepy. You go closer and they grab you. You try to free yourself, and out of the corner of my eye, I see this monstrosity. I don't even know how to describe it, but it made me feel so uncomfortable. The encounter is not really that hard, but it's all so eerie. Great dungeon. I actually came here by accident, but luckily it was the correct route because the Eye of Truth is very useful in our next dungeon, the Shadow Temple. I'll say it off the bat. The Shadow Temple is my favorite dungeon in Ocarina of Time. It has the same haunting and eerie atmosphere that the Forest Temple had, but it ups it tenfold. To get to the Shadow Temple, you have to first go back to the future and go to Kakariko Village. When you enter, the village is in flames and a shadowy monster comes running out of the well. Sheik is with you and gets tossed as you try to defend yourself against it. It retreats, and Sheik tells you you need to head to the Shadow Temple to help Impa, the Sheikah from early on in the game. Of course, you go to the temple and start your dungeoning. The Shadow Temple, like the well, is very creepy. It has skulls and the same bloody hues on the ground. The walls and skulls talk to you. It's also very claustrophobic, until it isn't. It's all really well done. If you have the Eye of Truth, this dungeon becomes easier. You can see the fake walls and cover ground quickly. You find the boots of swiftness early on and they allow you to ignore traction and hover for a brief moment in the air. This makes some of the puzzles a cakewalk. This dungeon reminded me the most of Sen's Fortress from Dark Souls. From the falling cleavers, to the traps, to the way you have to solve some of these puzzles, and on some level, it also reminded me of the Duke's Archives where you have to walk on invisible bridges, because the same concept is present here. You do a couple of running puzzles and find silver keys, and eventually end up on a ship. You play Zelda's Lullaby and get off at the end. Careful though, you can jump and just fall off like I did. Twice. There are a couple of bombs on the other side and you shoot an arrow to bring down the pillar. Before that, you gotta find the boss key, and that's pretty much the whole dungeon. Shadow Temple also commits the same sin of adding a useless puzzle before the boss. They have these hearts lying around for which I never figured out how to get to. They kept tempting me as I had low health, but eventually I said forget it. If any of you know how to get there, let me know in the comments below. The boss is pretty cool. I really like the concept. I also like the use of the Eye of Truth to see it so you can do your damage. The boss is on a spinning platform and has its hands playing the drums. Hit the hands with a ranged weapon and they get stunned. Once stunned, you can hit the eye of the boss with a ranged weapon that will allow you to do some damage. My main gripe with this fight is the camera. The camera was atrocious. Sometimes it would lock on, but then the arena starts spinning and you can't even see the boss, so you don't know where to hit it despite being locked on. Sometimes the boss's hands would do a 180 and be behind you, so you're forced to do a 180 yourself, but by the time you turn the camera around, granted it didn't lock on to the other hand is already hitting you. It was so annoying to deal with the camera in this fight. The boots of swiftness help in mitigating some of the spin, but it still happens. If not for the camera, I would have rated this boss much higher. Before heading to the Spirit Temple, which was the next dungeon, I decided to go back to the past and finish up the mask quest. I thought it was a pretty neat quest and gave the remaining masks to the required parties. I got a Mask of Truth, which I thought would have some super OP effect, but turns out it just reads people's minds. I don't know if that's an OP effect, but hey, at least I got it. Returning to the future, I went to Lon Lon Ranch and decided to check the place out. Turns out, Inga is now in charge, and he runs a tight shift. You can race him in horse racing, and I think if you win twice, you get a horse to ride around on. I got my ass handed to me for all my money until I went broke. I felt like a gambler in a casino on his last dollar. When I couldn't pay anymore, I just left. Defeated. After losing all my money, I went to the Spirit Temple to pray. I mean dungeon. On the way there, you meet a craftsman who needs his carpenters back. Where are they? Well, in the all-woman Gerudo Fortress. Turns out they wanted to join. Of course, who wouldn't want to join an all-women fortress where you just hang around? But these bozos got locked up. Turns out the Gerudos are working for Ganondorf. You go around the fortress freeing them and finding a mini-boss each time you free one. It was a cool mini-dungeon. I like the focus on stealth, as basic as it is, but it breaks up the usual combat plus puzzle structure. It also adds a lot of lore to the world. You find this out later at the entrance to the Spirit Temple, but the Gerudo are an all-women race who very rarely have a male offspring. How they reproduce, I don't know. But they do. Anyways, once that male offspring is born, he is destined to rule the Gerudo. I love this bit of world building. It makes me want to dive deeper into the Zelda lore. After freeing the carpenters, one of the Gerudo in charge, impressed by your fortitude, gives you a pass with the rest. This lets you get access into the desert nearby that you need to cross to get into the Spirit Temple. Also, the carpenters have built a bridge from where you once came. It was broken before, but good on these old boys for putting in the work. The desert is more of a mini area. It has a bit of puzzle solving, and it gates your progress by requiring the Lens of Truth. But once you have it, you just follow the ghost and make it to the Spirit Temple. I like the quicksand here. The sandstorm limiting your vision, these weird cactus piranha sandfish that keep attacking, who also have amazing tracking somehow. But you don't spend much time here. Not much to comment on. There's also this weird NPC that sells bomb chews on the carpet. Nice touch. Finally, I made it to the Spirit Temple. I went inside, and I realized very quickly that I need to come back here as Kid Link. Upon going out, Sheik shows up and gives you the song to come back to the Spirit Temple. Once you get this, you turn into Kid Link and return and the first quarter of the dungeon starts. You meet Naburu, who is Ganon's second in command. She asks you to steal some silver gauntlets so she can double-cross Ganon. Weird. My future self was told she's second in command. Why is she double-crossing him here? What happened? Did she change her mind at some point? Oh well, on with the dungeon. The temple is one of the best in the game. It requires all of the previous items you've gotten to complete it. It has the best puzzles, it has great enemy encounters, and it has a forest temple or shadow temple-esque layout, where it feels grand and temple-y, but also video gamey. I really enjoyed the first portion of Skid Link. Once you find the silver gauntlets, you witness Naburu get kidnapped. I see what happened here with Ganon now. Oh well, guess I'll hold on to these gauntlets for now. Once you get these, you can go back and come back, or should I say forward, as Adult Link. The remaining part of the dungeon begins. The puzzles with this shield are pretty neat. I felt like they wanted to show off lighting in 3D and use this as an excuse, and honestly, I'm here for it. Good puzzles, cool concept. The dungeon's main combat encounters are these mini-boss armored knights. They aren't difficult, but if you get hit, they pack a mean punch. At the end of the dungeon await the two witches who kidnapped Naburu 7 years ago. They are brainwashing her to do Ganon's bidding. This is the first 2 and 3 phase boss fight in the game. You beat Naburu first, who's clad in black armor, which is similar to the other 2 knights. Then you fight the witches as a 2v1. This fight has its own gimmick with the shield. You have to reflect the attacks they do on the other. They are fire and ice respectively, so you get the picture. Except maybe you don't. Maybe you try to hit the ice switch with the fire and the camera wants to take a day off. Maybe you want to take an angle or position yourself to predict the movement of the witch, but she decides there's something better to do behind you out of view. God, I really enjoy the game so much, but this camera time and time again has come to hinder my enjoyment. I really dislike it. I know they were dealing with the technical limitations of their time, or maybe they weren't, and just decided this was the best path. I don't know. But what I do know is that this camera sucks. I managed to beat them, and then they combined together into a giant witch. Off topic here, but there were a lot of sexual undertones with this witch. I mean, when you hit her, she moans, and it really takes you out of it because of how it sounds. Also, she's surprisingly young and hourglass shaped in this form, when the witches themselves are like 400 years old a pop. I mean, I get it, Japan, we all need our waifus, but damn, I was really enjoying the aesthetic of the game so far in its own unique way. I mean, have your hot waifus, I guess. What am I gonna do? Stop playing? Anyways, this phase is very easy. Absorb 3 hits of the same element, blast her, and start whacking her. My main gripe here is that the way they explain the fight is so vague. I get that I'm supposed to absorb the hits throughout the fight, but throw me a bone, man. I didn't know we were supposed to absorb 3 of the same hits. I tried interchanging the elements. I tried touching her with the shield, only to find out that I just had to stand there and hold L. I expected more from this fight, not sit tight and turtle. I beat her and moved on. I enjoyed the fight for what it is. I think the second phase is the highlight and more fun than the first or third. The camera does take away a lot of the enjoyment, but I still did enjoy the fight. After this, it's time to go to the Temple of Time. You meet Sheik here, or should I say Zelda. This was a great reveal. I was wondering where Sheik came from, since the village did not host Sheikahs anymore. But more so, whenever Sheik would show up, Link would suddenly move towards him or her in a weird way. I would think to myself, bro, you just met him, what are you doing? I thought it was played for humor, but turns out Sheik being Zelda was pretty obvious through these interactions. And I guess from the fact that he knew all the songs to each temple. But whatever, man. Ignorance is bliss, and I enjoyed the reveal. Zelda explains the Triforce Trinity, how you, her, and Ganon are all related to it, and how Ganon was scheming the whole time. Funnily enough, he abducts Zelda immediately, because of course he does. Remember, at Nintendo, we save princesses from evil turtles or sand people. And what do we have to do here? Well, you guessed it. Save the princess. So before I headed to Ganons Castle, I thought I'd finish up the side stories. I used the internet to help me out here. First thing I did was finish the 3rd weapon. The game has slots for 3 weapons, shields, tunics, and boots. I had gotten all of them naturally with the 3rd weapon. When I found out it was a greatsword, I almost lost my mind. I love greatswords, to the point where if a game gives me one, I play with it on my first run, always. I found about it so late here that I was a bit bummed out, but hey, I still got a final boss to kill. Acquiring it is no joke. It's one of those go from point A to B to C while you are timed. You also need one crucial detail, a horse. If you remember, Inga previously had destroyed me in horse racing. I could never beat him, but I wasn't playing it right. What I needed was Epona, the horse. Once you get Epona, Inga doesn't stand a chance. He crashes out completely after you beat him twice. He gives you Epona, but sneakily locks you into the ranch by closing the fence that leads out. With Epona, it's pretty simple to get out. Fully charge at it and just vault over. With Epona, the back and forth in Hyrule Field was pretty easy. I got the greatsword after some struggles, some very frustrating struggles, but I got it nonetheless. And it's a thing of beauty. It has the same moveset as a normal weapon, but you give up your shield for double damage and more range. Sign me up. I don't care for defense. I also decided to hit up all the great fairy fountains I missed. They all give you great upgrades that would have made my time in some of these fights much simpler, but oh well. Guess I played the game on hard mode, or as hard as I might be able to get mode. With all these things out of the way, it was time to head to President Ganon himself. Ganons Castle is rather simple in concept and pretty short. You have the sages make you Rainbow Road to get across and enter. There are 6 rooms with 6 seals that you need to destroy with a special arrow given by Zelda. You enter each room and do the puzzle. Except when you can't. Why, you may ask? Well, for one at least, you need the golden gauntlets. This is for the fire room and access to the light room. For another, you need to burn some webs on the roof to shine light on the suns on the wall. Now let's talk about the webs first. I tried bomb chewing it, using my fire spell, and even shooting normal arrows at it. I was so confused as to how I could do this room when nothing worked. I was so frustrated that I just looked it up. Turns out there are completely missable fire arrows after the water temple. I'll admit it, I saw the plaque that tells you about the rising sun. But here's my thing. Why are they so missable? How would someone figure this out back in 1998? I was able to because I have the internet. But what about people from 1998? I know they had the internet back then, but nobody was really on it. Is this one of those moments that you would share with your friends, and one would tell you about the fire arrows he got and you didn't? Would that trigger the thought of you getting them too to pass this dungeon? Perhaps. Maybe that was the intended design. I have a lot of gripes for it. I'm all for sharing and explaining and having a ton of fun with friends while you're playing the same game, but a single player game should be beatable in a reasonable single player way. That's the whole point, right? And if your counter argument is that you can still beat it single, or that we've lost that element of sociability, I'd respectfully disagree. It's just something so crucial, being so missable, rubs me the wrong way. Once you get the fire arrows, it's rather simple. Shoot the arrow onto the web and deal with the puzzle. In the shadow room, you get the golden gauntlets. To get them, shoot the brazier on the right hand side and complete the room. You'll get a chest with them in it. With the golden gauntlets, you can finally do the fire room and complete the light room. It all clicks together actually. And it's pretty fun. I have my gripes with the fire arrows and how missable they are, but I still enjoyed the content. Although there was a moment in the fire room where I almost lost my mind because of the way I was doing something, which seemed like one of the intended ways to complete the room, but it was just acting so weird. It's hard to explain, but I'll show you it on screen. You grapple onto this ledge here. The whole game, when you grapple, you hold forward to vault onto the ledge. Here, I was holding forward as I started the grapple. The camera shifts and it suddenly can't decide which forward input it wants relative to Link. So it does this ridiculous motion that kills me every time. I want to rip my hair out. Although I do like the little alley-oop Link does to the pillar Hercules style. I like the falling platforms. I liked it all despite my frustrations. All the rooms also used most of the kit we get throughout the game. I really enjoy them. Don't let my previous comments about the fire arrow or some of these weird motions about grappling hooks deter you. I think Ganon's Castle and the 6 rooms were still pretty good. Once the rooms are out the way, Ganon awaits you on top of the tower. You scale it, fighting some enemies on the way, and finally, it's final boss time. Here he is, playing the piano in a menacing fashion, indicating his sophistication with his villainy. He's never too busy doing evil stuff to not get a hobby. Great guy. A lot of us could learn. You start the fight, and he takes the ground out from under you. Literally. It took me a minute to figure out what I was supposed to do here, but then it came to me. The Forest Temple. Phantom Ganon. The paintings! The tennis match we had. It was time for a rematch. So I pick a corner, he serves, and I return. That's the whole fight. Eventually, you hit him and he is stunned for a brief second. This is your chance to shoot a light arrow, and he will come down to take a beating. Do this a couple times and you win. It's actually rather disappointing, considering it's just a reskin of an old one. Hell, the older one was better. At least there was a puzzle element with the paintings. Here it's just climb the tower, pick a corner, and start ping-ponging back and forth. Zelda is finally free, but Ganon, with one last hurrah, destroys the tower. You have to escape with Zelda with the timer ticking down. Side note. Towards the last couple hours of the game, there were a lot of timers, and I really was fatigued, but this one was not that bad. In general, I really dislike time thinking. It's just an anxiety inducer, and the task at hand isn't even fun to figure out. It's just tedious and annoying. But anyways, back to the show. You escape the tower with Zelda, fighting some fiends along the way, and just when you think the game is done and we'll have our happy ending, Ganon gets up. He's still kicking. He turns into this massive creature and locks your Master Sword and Zelda out of the arena. You're defenseless here, except if you have some other weapon, either arrows or the Great Sword. Well, I had the Great Sword, and I'm glad I did, because it made the fight so much easier. You have to stun Ganon with a bomb or light arrow and hit his tail. At some point, you deplete his health and you can grab the Master Sword again, and phase 3 starts. This time I kept the Master Sword on because I assumed you had to kill him with it for story lore reasons. It's the same mechanic as before and you just hit the tail. He finally falls after Zelda imprisons him for a moment, and you slash his face up good. Finally, the game is over and you live happily ever after with Zelda. Wait a minute. You don't get the princess at the end? Isn't that the whole point? You just return to being a kid again? Kinda anticlimactic, but okay. After finishing the game, I gave myself a day to let the ending sit with me. I thought a lot about the time period the game was released in, 1998. Zelda was just coming to a 3D realm. The hype was absolutely palpable. It was a very anticipated release. Once it did release, it made a huge splash and became one of the most critically acclaimed games of all time. It still holds that quality and title to this day. Honestly, the only thing holding it back is the graphics. I've developed a deep respect for the game. In so many ways, it's basic, from its storytelling to its combat system, to the spells you get, to the world and level design. But there's a reason for that. It laid the groundwork for games like it. It's a progenitor of all those games. It's only simple because people played it, analyzed it, and tried to recreate it in their own way. You play through these games that iterate on the Ocarina of Time formula and compare it to Ocarina of Time, and that's just very unfair. It's like bread. It's pretty simple when you compare it to something like pizza, but that doesn't mean bread is bad. It's the core that allows everything to be built around it. I do want to talk about the three main characters, starting with Link. I was one of those people growing up who thought that the main character that you see on screen was actually named Zelda. I mean, it's in the name of the game and he's on the cover art. You can't really blame someone for thinking that. I had learned before playing Ocarina of Time that the green tunic wearing hero is actually Link. Or is it? I don't know about any of the other games, but in this one, they make you name your character. Originally, I thought that this was just for the save file. Back in the day, sharing consoles was common, and you didn't want to play or save over your brother or sister's save file. I gave my save file the name of Linkyar, Link because I thought, well, that's his name, and Yar as a sort of in-game name I use in all my games. Well, the game starts and everybody's talking to Linkyar, and I'm confused. Wait, isn't he Link? I named him. Do we name him in every game? Why do people refer to him as Link if his name isn't really Link? I thought to myself. I knew Ocarina of Time had messed with time travel, or timelines, or time sequences. What I thought Link meant at this point was that he was a link between time periods. So I assumed that the fairy boy had gotten that name because of this. He's a link between timelines. Turns out they never really explain it in the game. At this moment in time, I'm going to choose to believe that his name is Link because he is a link between times. I don't know what the later games will do, but I'll find out when I play them. Link has no dialogue beyond grunts and moans he does during combat. He's a strong silent type, who speaks through actions rather than words. I still got a lot of his character though. Nintendo did a great job at animating him even with the limited graphics. I get the sense that Link is courageous, very ambitious, and curious of things and people around him. I guess it's the way people react to him. I say this mainly because of his interactions with Sheik. He's always inquiring with her, always has his eyes on her. He's very aware that this is someone he knows, or at least it felt like this after I learned Sheik is Zelda. As for Zelda, after finding out that Link wasn't Zelda, I quickly found out that Zelda was the princess Link was tasked to save in each game, kind of like a medieval blonde-haired, blue-eyed elf Mario. I was interested in what Zelda brought to the story. She mainly serves as a sort of quest giver or sort of living MacGuffin in the beginning. She is simultaneously someone who needs to be saved, but also the one driving the plot of the story. This is true until the 7-year time skip. After she is in hiding from Ganon, Sheik is now helping you, and of course we know Sheik is Zelda. As Sheik, Zelda is much more patient and mysterious, much more alluring as well. She speaks very little, but does a lot. She knows all the songs to all the temples, and shows up when Link needs her the most. Zelda gets a lot of character added with Sheik. Turns out, she's not just a wimpy princess who absolutely needs someone to save her. Rather, she understands that it is not her job to save the world, but be a part of saving the world. And Link's the same. He could not have done anything he did without Zelda helping him throughout the game. The sages are just as big of heroes as Link is. It's just Link is on the front line so he gets the highlights. But Zelda is incredibly important to the plot and story. She gives the ultimate sacrifice in game by losing her kingdom and letting her people down because she knows she has to wait for Link. And she also sacrifices, in our eyes, by being so active and useful off-screen, effectively sacrificing her star power to us in a way Link doesn't, by being so present and in the forefront. This probably gets remedied in later games, but I really ended up liking Zelda's character. She's not a damsel in distress, although if she was, I wouldn't mind that. But the way her character is handled is really amazing. I'm so curious to see more of her. Ganondorf was really cool. He's the main villainous force in the story, feigning loyalty to Hyrule so that he can more easily carry out his own plans to rule the world. He comes from the desert tribe far away from Hyrule, called Gerudo, and as soon as he's introduced, he's painted as an evil entity. His design was quite interesting. He's very imposing, tall, and dressed in black. He has a large goblin-like nose and is adorned with jewelry, not to mention green skin. He's so different from all the characters that you meet. I mean, there are monster-like creatures in the game, but they don't feel like monsters. He does. He has a sinister grin all the time, or at least he looks like he's hiding one. From the moment you see him, you get this eerie feeling. The graphics in this game are very dated, but they did such a good job animating Ganondorf. I really enjoyed when he was on screen. Towards the end, he gets even more scary. The world after the time skip changes to reflect what I believe is Ganondorf's personality. Almost all of the elements are in chaos and the world is overrun with evil entities. If the world is Ganon's mind, the monsters inhabiting it are his thoughts and the elements are the chaos he embodies. His grip is iron tight and he wants everything for himself. There's not a quality to be redeemed. It was so refreshing to see such a pure evil villain. A lot of time nowadays, the villain has to be relatable or understandable. Nobody played with them when they were younger, or they had a bad childhood, or lost something close to them. These are all fine origin stories, if you want to write your villain in that way, but they represent a more human type of evil. Ganon is not a human evil. In many ways, he's not an evil at all. He's a force of nature. Look at the way he warps the world around him like a hurricane or a tornado. He does not have complex emotions or actions, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I mean it in a matter-of-fact way. He's not doing what he does because of some unresolved trauma or revenge fantasy. It's what he is. On some level, can you even reason with him? Would you reason with an earthquake or a volcano? Ganon is something to deal with, something to prepare for, not something to talk and reason with. Even in his backstory given by Naburu, his birth itself is a cosmic miracle. Male children are not born to the Gerudo, except very rarely. Every time one is, he's destined to be king, as if his destiny was already laid out. And he shows this in his character and his arc. Coming back to the reasons I wanted to play this game in the first place. Dark Souls and Nintendo. I completely understand now what Miyazaki meant when he said Ocarina of Time heavily inspired Dark Souls. The level and dungeon design, the enemy encounters, the way the world's interconnected, All of that DNA is here in Zelda. Of course, Dark Souls is much darker and grittier, but you can't not notice Zelda inspiration. I mean, at its center, it basically ripped off the grand core of Zelda's gameplay. Go into a dungeon, complete the dungeon, fight a boss. If that was the description I gave you for a game, and asked you to guess between Dark Souls and Zelda, what would you say? There are enough similar shades in Dark Souls that you definitely see the inspiration. And Nintendo. I understand. I get it. I realize why people like them so much. They really push the industry forward with everything they do. I mean, the N64 with its 3D graphics changing the whole way a series plays, genre defining games, industry shaking console releases. I completely understand why people revere Nintendo. The only comparison I can make is Apple. At least 2000s to early 2010s Apple. These people really have a knack for making video games. And after this game, I consider myself a fan of at least Zelda. The next game I want to play is Majora's Mask. And hey, maybe I'll make a video on that one too.